welcome to everyone who's watching. That one viewer. We appreciate you.
It'll be two. It'll be you on your computer, me on mine.
And we don't have any sponsors yet, so if you, any video with a sponsor.
Oh no, actually, this video is brought to you by Titanium Fitness. If you are looking for coaching, I may or may not have spots open on the team, but if you are seriously interested, wherever you're watching this, you can hopefully find some links or whatever down below or somewhere. Who knows? And Ricky,
I run my own video production company, so if you need videos done, whatever you need, let me know.
Fully seriously, we will try to link out to, I guess for me, in my case, it would be the website, which needs to be updated, but there's at least...
you have a website?
I do. It's bad. There are testimonials though.
Oh, okay.
And they're, that's one thing that I'm very proud of is you read through my testimonials on the website or the Discord server. I've never, in the past 10 plus years, I've never had to make a sale. It was always like somebody that I coached before, somebody who was currently on the team, convincing other people that they shouldn't consider hiring anybody else. So to all the people who I've coached and who I currently coach who are doing that, thank you. For you, I do think that we'll probably link out to, do you have like a...
I do need to make a website.
Your channel. What about your channel?
Oh yeah, my YouTube, not my YouTube channel, but my Instagram, Ricky.thecreator. I will pretty much go over like teaching how to make content, teaching how to make videos. And yeah.
Great. So sponsored by Analog 33
and Titanium Fitness.
That's right. Okay, great. All right. So since it's been such a long time since I've produced anything, not you, Ricky, but for me, I think it's a good idea for us to reintroduce or introduce ourselves.
Yes.
So who are you?
My name is Ricky.
What do you do?
I am content creator, videographer, filmmaker, a whole general bundle of things.
Okay, but if I push you, because I think some of the stuff that you do or have done is really cool, and I know that you don't like to brag, but brag a little bit. Like, who are you working for? What have you done?
So I work with...
Gosh, are you allowed to say?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do a lot of contract work, a lot of freelance work, but I do it with my buddy Trevor with his company.
Shout out to Trevor.
Shout out to Trevor. And we work with a lot of high dollar luxury car brands. So we've worked with Ferrari, Bugatti, Aston Martin, and now we're starting to dabble into more like commercial work too. So we have worked with companies like Waymo, which is
Waymo, self-driving cars.
Yep, self-driving cars. So that's just pretty much a big part of what I do. Mostly.
Yeah. If the Waymo car self-drives you where you don't want to go, that's not Ricky's fault.
That is not my fault.
I
just do the video stuff. Yeah.
Ricky and I worked together for some of the stuff I did at another company of mine recently. So that's kind of how we got reconnected. But I've known you for
we went to the same high school, but we didn't know each other in high school.
Because Ricky was so much older than me.
Yeah, I'm an old man. It's like what, 3 years apart?
Probably. Because
you were you at in high school when I was there? Because I graduated 08.
No.
Yeah.
No, I was not.
Yeah, you were not there.
Yeah.
You were not there yet. Man, I'm old. 08. Sheesh.
All right. So you specialize though in, what would you call it? Videography?
Production? I would just say videography. It's such like videography is such like, to me is such like a cringy way, but I'm kind of getting out of that. It's like, I'm a videographer.
Yeah, if you have to call it something, that's what you call it.
I guess what I would call it. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's so prideful and like wants to be like, I'm a filmmaker.
I get that too. Like not wanting to assign a specific thing to yourself.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. So who are you?
I am Tyler Yasuda. If you're watching this on Titanium Fitness, you already know who I am, but okay, Cliff Notes version is a long time ago, started a business teaching people or coaching people online for fitness, so training, nutrition, self-management, you could say. I've done that now this will be the 13th year in business. This is my assistant. No, he's my boss. I've built a handful of other businesses, some more successful than others, but ranging from, there's a charity at some point. There was another company that made automotive wheels. Most recently, a materials tech company that made most of its money in armor for military, law enforcement, that kind of thing. Recently resigned from that company, and now have plenty of time to do stuff like this.
Most of your work though is with the fitness. Like that's mostly where your expertise lies.
Yeah, by far the majority of the work that I've done in the past decade plus has been in the fitness space, coaching space.
And you enjoy it?
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I'm very grateful for is that obviously I've made a living from it. It's funded everything else that I've done, but I've also like most grateful for the fact that I've never gotten to a point with fitness or coaching where I thought that I don't want to do it anymore or that I would rather do something else.
Yeah.
Everything else that I've done has always been kind of ancillary to the first and like most important mission for me. So past my time with that other company, me and Ricky wanted to find another way to work together. We tried some stuff in golf, some stuff in that same space of like kind of guns, gear, that whole thing. But I do think that when it comes to, making anything, if we're going to build something, consistency probably matters more than anything else.
Correct. Yeah.
And this is hopefully a way for us to keep this consistent. And I'm hoping too, like as much as we might start here in this place of fitness, if you are watching this on my old channel, Titanium Fitness, you know that there's a lot of videos in there where we mixed fitness with everything else, whatever else it might be. I'm looking forward to doing more of that here as well, but we'll start here because it's familiar and it's something that we both really enjoy.
Yeah, we both enjoy that topic. So it's a good topic to talk about.
So if you do watch, listen, you can look forward to, I guess there is always going to be fitness stuff, but we might venture out into who knows what else in the future.
Yeah. Making videos is not easy. And I do this for a living.
Yeah.
And it's not something where you can just like turn on the camera and just go. Like the whole logistics and planning and making sure it looks good. Like takes a lot of
scheduling with multiple people.
Yes.
Not like between you and I necessarily. It's more so like we tried to do a video. I think it would have only required 4 people, but scheduling with 4 people is actually much harder than maybe we thought.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it.
For sure.
What
do we call this?
We're calling it Do It Anyway. Why? I'll let you explain why.
Make me do it. Okay.
Because
so the phrase "do it anyway" to me has become a bit of a personal motto. I don't know when exactly, but like enough that the way that I organize like myself and my life, I have like you could call it a planner of sorts. And every day, the start of the day, when I'm reviewing my plan, I have a section there for whatever you want to call it, like a mindset goal or a goal for the day. And frequently that motto became the thing I was writing in that input. And basically what that means to me is that there are going to be plenty of times where you know what you're supposed to do. You know what you should do. Maybe you don't want to in the moment, or there are many other things that are pulling you away from that, making it harder. But if you intend to progress, if you intend to continue down the path that you're set on, you do it anyway. And a lot of it comes back to the idea of, I guess, reliability. That is something to me that is personally very important to all of the people I've worked with. They know I have extremely high standards for what I consider reliability for myself first, and then for the people that I work with as well. My family, they know this about me. My fiance knows this about me. Ricky knows this about me. But yeah, definitely has been a very common theme in the progression or the evolution of myself as a person, my businesses, and my life for the past, I don't know, I would say decade plus for sure. And it just so happens that when me and Ricky started talking about doing something together, we were trying to think of, well, first the conversation was basically like, what's important to you? Because I knew you not super well.
Yeah.
But a lot of that first maybe 2-3 conversations was just trying to figure out like what's important to you.
Yeah.
And making sure that we have enough common values that it would make sense for us to work together.
Correct.
Because that is, like in my experience, that has always been the thing that makes or breaks a business with multiple people, is whether or not you share enough in principle.
Yes.
The goals and like how you get there, that also does matter. But I think those principles matter more.
Correct. Yeah. I 100% agree.
I mean, we talked about that, and I kind of coincidentally, it was something that already meant something to you as well.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about like what exactly that meant to you? If it was different at all?
It wasn't much different. It's just literally what it is. Do it anyway. A lot of times we're just thinking about doing things and like, should we do this or that? It's like, just do it. Try it out. It's like, we don't know what's going to happen. And when you need to do something, you just do it. Like, don't make any excuses for it. There shouldn't be any reason not to do what you want to do. If it's just like anything, particularly in like a goal or a task or anything.
In the creative space, especially, you've talked to me about like the difficulty with sometimes like doing of the things because you're so concerned about like chasing what you think the ideal or the perfection might be. How does that play into that idea of like doing it anyway?
With the creative thing, it goes in line of when you want to create something and you're so in your head about should it be this way or should it be that way or trying to perfect it. It goes back to where you just do it, try it out and see where it goes. And to me, it's getting the reps in also in the whole practice of all that, because you can think about it all in your head all you want to do it this way or do it that way.
Yeah.
But if you don't do it, it's not going to be shown. You're not going to get the rep in. You're not going to
You get nothing out of doing nothing.
Yeah,
right?
you get nothing out of it.
So it's almost like you doing a rep that's say 70% perfect. It's still better than not doing a rep.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what I'm realizing a lot right now currently with my whole trying to be a content creator is I'm too busy trying to perfect everything and nothing's being shown.
Yeah.
So I'm at a point right now where I'm consistently putting out content. It may not be good, but it's getting posted and I'm actually learning, oh yeah, this video sucked. Okay, cool. I'm going to do it better next time. This is what I can do better.
Yeah.
Just try it. Just do it. Do it anyway.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting idea. Like in content, especially in business a lot too. I think that there's a lot of people who you almost learn the skill of, can I swear? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we can't, we'll just edit it out later.
Bleep it. You
But
should be able to.
one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten it was from one of my clients actually, who's a little older than me, much more successful in business. He told me that you almost have to learn how to fuck up quickly. And that's more valuable than making like the best decision. Because if you fuck up quickly, like whatever choice you make, there's a good chance you're wrong. If you make that choice quickly, without delay, you chase that down whatever path it takes you.
Yeah.
And then you discover also very soon after that you were wrong. You get to make that next decision.
I really like that because
I think that's how we talked about that the first time it came up, right?
Yeah, because our journey to even get into the podcast now, who knows if we're going to continue with this or what's the next thing, but we're trying everything pretty fast. Like we just started doing this, probably a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago.
Month and a half, yeah.
Yeah. And we've tried like 3 things already, super fast.
Yeah.
And with our schedules too, that's really fast. And we're figuring out, we tried a golf video and right after we were done with it, we're like, it ain't going to work.
Yeah.
We tried some other things. They're like, this could work, but logistically, it's just, and now we're trying, it's like, we were able to figure that all out very fast versus like 6 months, a year down the line.
Yep.
Same thing with anything else. Like from my personal perspective, like making content is I could sit there and I've done this before. I've maybe took like 2 weeks to make this like quote unquote little short film content. It took so long to make because I was trying to perfect everything. It came out and I still put it out 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. And there was a lot wrong with it still.
Yeah.
So, but I wasted this 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If I would have just did it all quick and try to stop trying to perfect it and do it like 2 or 3 days, and I saw that it was still sucked or I didn't like anything about it, it's only 3 days I wasted. And I could have made, in those 2 or 3 weeks that I did waste for one time, I could have made 2 or 3 more and it could have been better than the original.
Yeah. And I think an important distinction there, because depending on context, how we clip this and such, you might misunderstand that. It's not to say that you want to make worse things. Like your end product shouldn't be worse intentionally. It's more so you need to produce enough, whatever it is. If it's a business, if it's content creation, if it's lifting, you need to do enough to actually make progress and be able to evaluate if what you're doing is actually progressive or not.
Correct.
If you do nothing because you're so obsessively planning and evaluating before you actually have any data to come back from, you really accomplish nothing then. You're kind of just the same. You're going to stay in the same place all the time. And then compare, Ricky A to Ricky B. If there's a clone of you somewhere, the Ricky A who has made 10 decisions and 9 of them were wrong, he's still at that decision 10. So he's further along. He's learned quite a bit in the meantime. Whereas Ricky B, if he's still stuck on decision 1 and he's not decided what he's going to do there yet, he hasn't gone anywhere.
Correct.
Right. So even if you can say that Ricky A, having made 10 choices, 9 of them wrong, he is very frequently wrong. He's still better off because of it.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
So thematically then, the idea or the motto, if you will, of do it anyway, I do think that fits what we're trying to do here, because we don't really know what this is going to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
But that's kind of the point too, is whatever we decide that we want to do, if it seems at all worth trying, we probably will.
Mhm.
And if we learn after the fact that it doesn't do well or we don't enjoy it, whatever the case is, we can always pivot.
Yep.
But we're going to do something.
Yeah.
And we're going to do something consistently. So that is another thing, like maybe a promise that we're making then to the people who do see this is that we are going to be consistent with this.
Yes.
We at least plan for the end of through 2025. And if it's going at all well, or at the very least we're enjoying, we'll continue past that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of people who have asked me about the stuff I was doing many years ago have been asking forever, like, when do I make the next thing? So here it is. Here's the next thing. And hopefully this will be successful, and I can assure you it'll be consistent at the very least.
Yeah. And I think the podcast way of doing it too is a good way, especially for you, is because you have a lot of knowledge and you've built like a following on YouTube and socials of like your knowledge and what you share based off like fitness or other topics.
You know, the funny thing about that too is we've talked about this, whatever following I do or had in the past, it was built entirely on the basis of whatever knowledge I have.
Yep.
Because it wasn't good content. It wasn't good like in the sense that it was like pretty and well produced.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those videos really were just like me, some of them like in my dorm room.
Yeah, you're literally just putting there horrible lighting with the camcorder.
Dry erase pen on the desk. But even on a whiteboard. I didn't have a whiteboard. I just had a desk.
That goes to prove that like just people talking and they want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this like pretty image.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, you can tell whether you're listening or watching. Hopefully, you can tell that the production quality is higher. That's you, though. That's not me.
Yeah.
So the idea is we put those two things together, and hopefully, we have something here.
Yeah.
The next chunk of this, then, we're gonna probably go through a handful of questions. A lot of these questions are questions that you've asked me before. You've like kind of like thrown my way.
Yeah.
I guess before we even get into the questions, let's talk a little bit about like where you are with your fitness, what you do.
So my fitness,
what's the history?
History is I probably started lifting.
Ricky used to be 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, I used to be 1,000 pounds.
Now he's only 900.
I started lifting when I was probably like in my 20s, when I feel like fitness was still like relatively new to like a broad audience.
Yeah.
If you would probably
what year do you think that was?
That was probably 2010.
2010. Golden age.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Man, that was before
when Jack 3D was still around. Remember that?
Still had like 1,3-dimethylamylamine in it. That was when Instagram was still used to post pictures of food.
I don't think Instagram was out yet.
2010?
No, I don't think so. Maybe I didn't have it though.
No, you're probably right. No, you're right.
This is when YouTube was starting out.
You're right. So 2010, I would have been a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, I don't think maybe
Instagram for me was like a senior year thing.
Yeah, maybe
if that.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
so no Instagram yet.
Yeah, so no Instagram. Just go to the gym, just lift. I think the people who were around was who was around like on YouTube.
Nobody really yet. 2010. I don't think it was that big yet. It was really early.
Yeah.
You get like OG guys like Raymond Carrito, the online coach.
Yeah.
But on like the bodybuilding forums, not even like YouTube.
That's true.
This is like even before YouTube Fitness, because YouTube Fitness was probably like really big or starting to get big around like 2012, 2014.
Yeah. Man.
So that's when you started, 2010-ish?
Probably 2010-ish, yeah.
Same.
If I were to guess.
The first time I like trained in a real gym, like not my dad's garage, was 2010.
Yeah. Same. Like the 24-hour fitness. That's where I was lifting with my buddies and like you just lifting. There was no
like Greenhaven?
Yeah, the Greenhaven one.
Oh no, shit, me too.
Yeah, because I've seen you there before.
Have we?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Because you don't remember the people who would like try to do this was later. This was probably past 2010. But like we would be doing like muscle ups and shit.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Skinny fat, weighed up like $150, didn't have abs, and couldn't just gain weight for the life of me. But I would probably say it was because I had a very physical job. Not very physical, but I was just didn't have a desk job. And I was also young too, so probably my BMR was like so high.
Sure.
Then transitioned into powerlifting, and that's when we started linking up. Because I think you were coaching at the time, starting to.
What year?
Because you were in LA.
Yeah.
You're in LA.
I started coaching.
And that's when like the movement of the powerlifting started on like Instagram and YouTube. Everybody started doing like Bart Kwan and all them.
Yeah, Bart Kwan.
Yeah.
Gio. Shout out Barbell Brigade.
Yep. and started powerlifting. Then I started gaining a lot of weight, but I also got a desk job too, so that probably didn't help.
Didn't help. Yeah.
Yeah, was lifting a lot of weight and got too heavy. I hit the goals I wanted. I hit a 500 deadlift, like a 315 squat, and I almost got to a 315 bench. But
Weird gaps, Ricky.
yeah, very weird. Yeah,
Weird
yeah.
gaps.
I wasn't very consistent with this also too. I
Okay.
didn't have a coach. Like I was just doing some like a Shako program or like the
Shako, yeah.
remember the Johnny Candido program?
That's a good program. To
Yeah.
this day,
People
I would
use
still
it.
recommend
Yeah,
Candido's programming.
it's a good linear program. But still I wasn't very strict on every like I wasn't strict with like the days I would go and I wasn't hitting all the accessories, but I was doing the minimum.
Yeah.
So that's why my progression was just very like, got very heavy. I didn't like that I was so heavy. I think one day I went to go play basketball, and I used to always play basketball.
How heavy is very heavy?
I think I was like 230.
Mm.
Went to go play basketball one day, and you
For
okay,
context,
Chuck?
what?
Context, go ahead. Yeah,
I say for context, how tall are you?
5'10".
5'10", 230.
Yes.
It's quite heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is probably I would guess maybe mid-20s at this time.
Okay.
And go play basketball. It was a full court game too.
Mm-hmm.
I died.
Yeah.
I was just I
Hard
did not
changing
like
directions quickly.
I did not just even running up and down the court. Just
Oh yeah.
I didn't. I used to run a lot when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
and when I started powerlifting, I was like, no, just gotta lift a lot of weight. Gotta eat, and lift a lot of weight. That was the whole mantra for everybody. I feel like,
Yeah.
and did that when I just started playing basketball. It was just, oh yeah, I don't like this. So I was like, okay, I gotta lose some weight.
Yeah.
Started losing weight slowly. It wasn't the best. I didn't have a program. I was just trying to find all these programs I could online, like a cookie cutter thing. And we all know like that can only get you so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up joining a boxing gym. Keep in mind, I was doing the content at the time, and I always loved boxing too. Even when I was younger, I was like, I wanted to be like a boxer.
Like Western boxing or like Muay Thai?
Western boxing, yeah. And I lost a little weight there because I was dead. I mean, I had a coach essentially, so I had someone who held me
Yeah.
solely accountable too. So I was like, hey, you go make sure you're running your 2 miles every day. You making sure you're doing all your sparring, all your workouts. Like if you didn't, because that would show because you're sparring too, so that would show.
There's like actual consequences.
Yeah, there's actual consequence too, and then also too, the coach will look at you and be like, if you're not gonna put much effort to it, I'm not gonna give you put much effort to it too. And I kind of like wanted to be an amateur fighter too, just for fun.
Yeah.
And I didn't end up doing that, but I did lose a lot of weight. I got down to like 190.
Mm-hmm.
I felt great, and stopped doing the boxing because it was just too much trauma. I was to my head and my brain.
That's tricky.
Yeah, at this time I was.
You need your brain.
Yeah, I was at this time I was going deep into being a videographer.
Yeah.
And creatively you need your brain because getting concussions is not fun.
I work with a resident physician.
Yeah.
Who only recently he was competing in Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Through residency.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only recently decided that he probably won't take another fight. I honestly question that.
So he's taking fights too? He's not just training.
Not anymore. He's done 2 fights. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I wonder if he'll go back and fight again.
Yeah.
But at least recently he kind of decided that he probably won't because, your brain is very important for practicing medicine.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think that unless you're making money from it, you'd have to really, really love getting hit.
Yeah.
To want to do that. Because you get rocked in the head too many times. This is, I don't know.
It's not good.
So many side effects.
I feel like I'm slower, but also could just
you seem like you're something.
I also could be.
You seem dumber than usual.
I do seem dumber than usual, but also I could just be getting old too. So it's either one of the two.
So where are you at now then?
So right now, I just wanted to get have my athleticism back. I want to be able to run, jump, change the direction without any issues.
Okay.
So I am now currently weighing, since this morning, 204.
Okay.
And I hovering around between like 203 to 208, depending how well my diet is.
Sure.
And it's still heavy.
Are you aiming downward though?
I want to aim downward.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to aim downward because running hurts sometimes.
That's not good.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it just does
it
hurt
just
though.
does. Yeah, but there's a lot of
Like, I'm saying
I
like even if you
feel
were lighter, it might
yeah,
still.
it still hurt,
Yeah.
but I feel heavy. A
Okay.
lot of my steps feel heavy. It doesn't feel the same as if I was lighter. Like back
Yeah.
when I was 190, when I was running those 2 miles every day, like those were easy.
Mhm.
But now I just feel like everything's just heavy. Joints hurt. I mean, like you said, running's gonna hurt. But I just want to be able to safely stay athletic without being so heavy and
Yeah, you don't want to
adding
be
that.
falling apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
adding that extra. Like, why am I making it hard for myself to do these things if I'm heavy when I can just lose weight if I don't need the weight?
Yeah, and you're kind of an interesting case because I think that so you kind of know what you want to accomplish with your fitness. So
Yeah.
to articulate that, you're saying you want to be athletic, you want to be capable physically.
Mm-hmm.
Some components of that does boil down to like figuring out your diet and figuring out training stimulus, but it would have to be like more inclusive. It wouldn't just be like bodybuilding. It would be like a little bit of like power, maybe some agility,
Yep.
some sport specific stuff. But I do think that for you, you're an interesting case where you actually know a decent amount about the
Yes.
house.
Yes.
So like for you, if you don't make progress, and maybe if this is a consistent thing we do with the podcast, maybe we do that every once in a while. Check on Ricky, see how he's
yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Because
Everyone
really,
hold me accountable.
honestly, seriously, there's some like serious. It's very useful having social reinforcement behind whatever you're doing. So if you say your goals right now would be to get back to like 190,
Yeah.
to be that much leaner, that'd be like 15-ish pounds leaner.
Yeah.
You want to be able to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to hopefully run again, whatever it is, right? If you articulate those goals, you actually do have probably both more knowledge or by proxy also access to knowledge than most other people do.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be reasonable for you to say like if you aren't making progress that it's because you don't know. Like a lot of people, like there's no shortage of effort.
Yeah.
They just put it everywhere else that they shouldn't. Like they don't know where that effort goes. For you, that's still sometimes the case, but I think a lot of times it's organizing your effort effectively.
Yes.
So like a lot of the work that I do with my client base, it's I would describe it as I teach them about nutrition, about training, and about self-management. For you, that third one, the self-management piece, is probably the one that you lack the most right now because you know enough about training.
Yeah.
You know enough about your diet where when you're doing it well, it's effective.
Yes.
Right. Certainly there are things for you to improve there, but I do think that the most consistent like missing piece is the self-management portion to make sure you're maximizing the result from every bit of effort and time that goes into
Exactly.
fitness.
And I think that's where it goes to, even with this, I'm trying to perfect everything and trying to maximize every single thing as possible.
Right.
And I think that's what hinders me also.
Right.
Because I'm just trying to perfect, like, okay, I got to make sure, like, to the T, like, how much volume do I need to do? And I think for my goals, I don't need to do all that. And essentially, would you agree?
I mean, we'll see. I think that optimizing always makes sense if you have the way to do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't prevent you from the output of effort.
Yeah.
But when we talk through some of these questions, so to be clear, some of the questions we go through are essentially, we're going to frame it anyway as questions from you to me.
Yes.
We might flip it back the other way around too, where maybe I answer it in the context of my training.
Yes.
And perhaps it's useful. I'll circle back, but it's maybe useful to talk about what I'm doing with my, like what my goals are and so on. But yeah, I think for you, a lot of the answers, and actually in a general sense, a lot of the answers are going to be more so like it depends, which I know is less useful.
Yeah.
So we'll try to like make it more specific.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still whatever the thing that you're doing, whatever program, however you approach your training, however you approach your diet, doing something is certainly still better than doing less of anything else.
Yeah, that's true. So I say the big question would be
real quick.
Real
quick. So something just to throw in there in case this is at all useful context as we answer some of these questions currently. So a lot of people watching may actually know me from other stuff. I've competed in bodybuilding, powerlifting. More recently, I've kind of gotten into endurance training. So specifically like road running. Within the current year, I'm hoping to do a half marathon a couple months from now. I'm hoping to do my first full end of the year. And then I also, I'm hoping to be able to do a full power meet in between those two races.
Oh, so you're going to do a powerlifting meet?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wanted to a while ago, but it's been about 2 years now since I fully ruptured my left pec. And the whole surgery and recovery, it was not ideal. So the recovery took forever. Still deal with some like little differences on that side, the injured side, some limitations with the mobility and so on. A lot of it's probably just like a lot of the way it affects me in training now is probably mental, like trying to get over like I maybe say like gun shy a
Hmm.
little bit over a
Do you
certain.
feel like you're gonna injure yourself
I don't
again?
feel like I'm going to injure myself, but the thought frequently crosses my mind like, what if it? Because
Uh,
when that happened in the first place, I didn't
you
think I
didn't
felt
think,
great.
yeah.
I felt amazing that day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then
What
just
What do you think caused it? Like, was it
oh
anything you could
man.
have done?
Technique wise, no. I've watched that film back more times than I care to. I think a lot of it comes down to training conditions, probably. So some of it's bad luck, right?
Yeah,
There's always going to be a component of just chance in whatever you do.
yeah,
A large component there is just, I would say bad luck because it's a very uncommon injury. People watching this and who like hang out online in the fitness space, you might think it's a super common thing. It's not. It just seems that way because the 5 cases that you know of were like very, very public cases. But it's so uncommon. There's not a lot of research done on like the treatment and then also like the rehab afterward. And that was part of the thing that became very tricky after the injury and after the surgery was learning how to do. I was very lucky to find a care team, NorCal Physio, who they had PTs there who specialize in barbell sports. So Eric and Caleb were super helpful, helping me figure out both the physical therapy part, treatment both in clinic and out of clinic, and then also my return to normal training. Um, but I mean, all that is to say, like some of those things, like injuries, you don't know. Like I don't think there's really anything I could have done differently or better. Conditions maybe, but the conditions that affected my training session that day, they're just life things. Like it's a particularly stressful work day. I may have been slightly underfed and slightly underhydrated, but I still,
Did you? Was it a heavy lift? Like, was it like
sure,
close to your one
sure,
rep max? Oh,
yeah.
that's okay. So it was just essentially just bad luck. It
A
was.
lot of it probably, yeah. I think some of it conditions, but again, the condition thing is like you could say, okay, just never be stressed.
Yeah.
You can't actually accomplish that.
No, you can't. Yeah.
Um,
But if, would little things like that like mentally really affect what your
for
body
sure.
really?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
Like injury risk can very much be predicted by things like external stress, whether that's physical, mental, emotional,
really?
for sure. Yeah. The data that may be available for, say, injuries in like high level athletes, it's more likely to happen at times of like competition than it is, or
Mhm.
like training leading up to comp than it is
Yeah.
just like off season training. You could attribute a lot of that to like the type of training you're doing, but a lot of it, I feel safe saying that a lot of it has to do with like the sort of stress outside of just physical stress that is can be attributed to like whatever event that you're leading up to or building up to.
Yeah.
Maybe same in a sense could be the same thing for me. Like I knew I was like leading up to
Mm.
um, a pretty max effort week the following, so some component there, but all that like circling back,
There's
all of that,
a lot of it can affect your training.
sure,
There's not one little thing. It's just there's so many different variables. You just don't know. There's just a lot of data out there.
yeah, and actually that's a great point. Is that I don't know that it's always useful to figure out why.
Yeah.
Um, Especially if it's something that you can't change.
Mhm.
If you can learn from it, great. Maybe it steers your future training or how you prep for training. But some of the things, like for me with the injury, especially, it's not something that I really want to like spend a ton of time like reliving or thinking about.
Yeah.
So while it's tempting to like go back and rewatch, because I was injured not that seriously, but like pretty badly when I was in college as well. Something with my VL and TFL on my. See, I don't even remember which leg it was anymore, but on one of my legs, really weird thing with like I was squatting, grade 2 tear, didn't require surgery or anything, but it did put me out of training for a long time.
Yeah.
While I was in prep for both my first meet and a few bodybuilding shows. But like that experience, I watched that film too many times, like
Yeah.
probably like hundreds or
Like
thousands of times,
unnecessarily
looking
needed it.
for a reason,
Yeah.
right? So like there's some point where it's like maybe just not useful anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like that whole methodology of like trying to analyze something so heavily. I mean, just with fitness or even like making content from my experiences, like right now I'm like pushing out content like every day and I'm over analyzing everything too much where
Mhm.
it's hindering for me just to go do the next thing. So example for like fitness, like for your journey
Yeah,
of your injuries, like you could be over analyzing everything so much and trying to change everything. Okay, it could be this, could be that. And it doesn't help that because now you're just stuck in this moment where you just need to just move on, essentially.
right, exactly. Like so, I guess I'm willing to do that to the extent that it informs like future training decisions.
Yeah.
But past that point, not really, because it's not useful for me. If anything, it's probably detrimental to me, like mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
to spend too much there.
Yeah.
But full circle, the reason we kind of ventured down that path in the first place was with my training right now. I wanted to compete in powerlifting back then. I was
Yeah.
prepping for a meet
Yeah.
when I injured myself. So that's all about 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
I'm hoping then that I can do a powerlifting meet while also prepping and training for these races, because one, I have discovered both in my own experience and also experience coaching a few guys who are kind of multimodal in their training. It's way harder to figure out the programming side. It requires a lot of unique changes or say accommodations to be made that you wouldn't normally, like say in somebody's resistance training, in order to accommodate even just like a handful of like moderate intensity runs. And for me as well, programming in a way that allows me to progress both adaptation types at the same time. So both building endurance capacity and building strength.
Yeah, because you're trying to do a powerlifting and run.
Like I would like.
So would you say you're a hybrid athlete?
Yeah, sure. You know, that term, it probably first popped up like, I want to say 2014-ish. The first time I heard people throwing that term around was probably 2013, 2014. And it was actually mostly in the context of people who were pursuing both bodybuilding and powerlifting at the same time. It wasn't like say strength or bodybuilding crossing over into endurance. But I know nowadays most people mean that as like some endurance component, some, I don't know, strength sport. Yeah. But in my case, it's just more so if I can say total over 1,500 pounds in the 83 kilogram class or 82.5 kilogram class, I think that's a very reasonable, like well within reach goal. Even with, you know, whatever obstacles I have on that left side, my shoulder, my chest, I still think I can do that. And the race stuff, it's like, that's entirely new to me. So if I can do both at the same time, to me, that's meaningful, because it means that one, I'm stronger than I've ever been at anywhere near that weight. And two, I'm also in better shape, like cardiovascularly. I have more endurance capacity than I've ever had. And that's meaningful to me from so many reasons. But like one of them is that I'm 31. I'll be 31 this year. Woo. If at that age, I can be in the best shape that I've ever been, I can be stronger than I've ever been, even when I was like much younger. And I had way more free time. I think that says a lot about how effectively and efficient I've been able to manage the training. Where like when I was in school, if my only responsibilities were like do good in school and train really hard, that's actually pretty easy to accomplish. And like to do
when we were younger, we didn't think that, but
yeah, when you don't have like grown up responsibilities, it's a little bit easier. But you know, if you have like a family, if you have a demanding career job, whatever,
your responsibilities.
So you kind of have to get to a point where you maybe have less effort and time to give to your fitness. But as a testament, I guess, to both the things that I have learned and continue to learn, maximizing the outcome of that effort, I think it means a lot to me if I can, with limited time and effort into my training and into my nutrition and so on, still have or produce a result that is, you know, objectively greater than anything I've done in the past.
So what made you, so let's just deep dive more on you. So what made you essentially want to include endurance into your training? Because you were bodybuilding, powerlifting. Like what, obviously the whole, everybody's trying to be like this quote unquote hybrid athlete, but for you personally, why did you want to incorporate endurance?
I think when it started was during COVID. I was training with my cousin in his garage, and his house is not actually that close to mine. So it wasn't actually, there wasn't much thought to this. It was like, you know, a 25-minute drive to get to his house to train every day. So I was only training, I think at the time, like maybe 3 times a week I'd lift. And then for the sake of time efficiency, I wanted to find something else, some other way to train. I thought about just like getting like dumbbells or something at my place, but like my garage, we have a 2-car garage, is not quite big enough to fit cars and, you know, weights and stuff. So that didn't seem like a viable option. I knew I hadn't run in forever, and just the way things were during that time, I think myself and most people were not going outside nearly as much. So kind of as a way to like just get myself out of the house and enjoy that, I started running. And like the first few times I was like kind of baffled by how much I struggled. Because I think I only ran maybe
because you're still in your 20s at this time. right?
Yeah, I mean, this would have been 2020,
Yeah.
like height of COVID kind of thing.
Yeah.
So 2020, and like I hadn't really run in a very long time, but I always thought, like I'm
You're lean, like you're
great
pretty
physique,
lean, like
pretty lean, long enough limbs. I should be able to run. And like, holy shit, I could run,
demoralizing.
but not well. And like, I felt like I was dying. So like that realization for me is like, okay, I should be able to do this. It's like, this is a thing that an adult man or anybody should be able to do.
Yeah.
So at the very least, I wanted to develop like a minimum competency there. And then as I started getting into that, it just became a thing where like, I kind of enjoyed it.
Yep.
Well, love, hate. Sometimes I enjoy it, sometimes I don't, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a thing where it's different. I would say that the type of training I do, like in the gym, resistance training, it's like pretty extreme discomfort. You might even say pain for a very short moment of time,
Yes.
like in a hard set, right?
Yep.
Whereas like running, like a long run or like a race, it's when I say race, by the way, for context, I'm talking about like kind of like moderate distances, like your half marathon, your marathon.
Yeah.
I'm not doing sprints. I'm not an Olympic athlete. So the kind of racing I'm talking about, it's like, moderate discomfort, but for a really long time comparatively.
Yeah.
And that feels so much different to me. I don't know if it feels better or worse. It's different. And it was challenging in a different way. I think the biggest attraction for me to doing both, though, is really just that it makes programming so much more difficult. I know that sounds silly, but there's a lot of utility for me in having that experience because it will hopefully, for one, make me more empathetic to the people who want to pursue both.
Yeah.
I have like an accurate approximation from my own experience as to what that's like. And then two, I get to learn a lot about like the way you would program effectively for combined modes of training.
Yeah, because essentially now opens up your broader network of coaching. Now you're not just solely coaching people who want to lose. Like, what would you say right before you started running?
Yep.
What was your market of like who would you coach? What kind of people would it be? People who are bodybuild, powerlift, just
no.
lose
You
weight?
know what's interesting? I know a lot of people probably have this idea in their head that I specialized in something.
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay. So if I come to you, what service do you provide for me? Essentially, what goals can you help me essentially hit?
It depends. I mean, I would say the conversations do the other way around. It's more like, what are your goals?
Yeah.
What are you willing to do
Uh-huh.
consistently to progress toward them?
Yeah.
And like, if the goal set is something that I don't feel comfortable I can coach, if you told me that you wanted to be an amazing Olympic lifter,
Okay.
I would not work with you.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to, not because I don't care. It's just like I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's something that I don't know how to do and have no experience doing, I think it would preclude you from working with me.
Yep. So would you say bodybuilding, anything bodybuilding related, powerlifting related, or just like getting a physique that you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think if your goals could be boiled down to like categorically improving your physique, improving your like fitness related health,
okay,
or being stronger, faster, whatever, I think that you would fall within the category of people that I could consider coaching.
Okay,
but like there's not really an average client for me. That I don't really know that there is anything. Any real average. I do have guys who compete in bodybuilding. I do have guys and girls who compete in powerlifting. Some of them who hold records. But I also have like people who just have like really challenging professional jobs, or they run businesses or whatever it is, and they're trying to find a way to do that, like progress in their life and in their careers while also progressing in their fitness, which is, I mean, as you know, it's pretty difficult, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, short of like a very sport specific thing, or particularly sports that I know nothing about.
Yeah.
I feel pretty comfortable that, and this applies not just to myself, but other coaches. Like if you know more than whoever else, you could help your wife.
Yeah.
Right. Because you know significantly more than she does.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, as long as your knowledge base is wider and you're able to, so knowing things is one.
Yeah.
Being able to teach them is another thing.
Yeah.
So as long as you do those two things, I think you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you tell people that you have learned personally from an injury, like how to move on from that, or like how to just keep going?
On like a more practical, like training related side, I think that understanding where like the limit or the boundaries of your knowledge may exist is really helpful. So like for me, I knew that I don't have enough knowledge in terms of injury recovery.
Yeah.
That I could feel confident like this is exactly how I should manage this.
Yeah.
Which is why both like I wanted to find like expert help and I was willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And like I understand things like that. Like going private for physical therapy is extremely expensive.
Yes, it is.
Um, but my other option was like in network, the physical therapy that was available to me. Like the first person I worked with, they were my in network PT, and it really worried me that in that first appointment, the therapist she was really nice,
Yeah.
but she had to open a textbook to figure out where the insertion of your pec major was.
Oh wow.
And to me, that was like pretty alarming. So I went
Yeah.
through the appointment. I didn't want to be like impolite or anything. I went through the appointment, but I went through the appointment knowing like I'm not coming back here.
Yeah.
So after that, I reached out to a couple of my past clients who are practicing PTs. They're just not local to me
Yeah.
for recommendations for people in the area. And I found, people who specialize in this.
Yeah.
Like this is their job. This is their only thing they have to be, or they're the one thing that they're supposed to be the best at.
Yeah.
Right. And like, while, yeah, I could maybe eventually teach myself enough to be an expert enough to manage that, it wouldn't have happened fast enough for it to be helpful for me myself. Right.
Yeah.
But I think one is knowing where the boundaries of your knowledge are and being able to or willing to seek help whenever possible or whenever necessary. But then two, and this is maybe like less practical advice, more like, I don't know, philosophy. I do think it's really important that you don't attach too much of your own identity to any one pursuit in your life. Like for me, something that I struggled with a lot during that process of recovery, and like, especially when I couldn't train at all, was I actually didn't know how much of like my own, like, I don't know how exactly you'd say it, but like perhaps like my self-worth or my identity, I had attached to this idea that I was like really fucking strong.
Yeah.
And like, to be clear, I'm not never have been the strongest person in the world. Even when I held records, they were like state level records with an age category attached or anything.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm not like, the 1% necessarily in a sport, but I knew I was like pretty strong. And a lot of, I guess, even like the way that I perceived myself or like the confidence that I carried myself with was attached to that belief that I was like really strong. Like without that, it's like, well, where did it come from?
Yeah.
And the answer is not nowhere. Like there are other things, other parts of me in my life that I think that I can derive that sort of confidence or that value from. I had just gotten so used to it being the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like quite unhealthy and made the whole thing much harder than it needed to be when I was going through that process.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's just a stressful process in general.
Sure.
It's a mentally draining thing. And
Yeah.
it's like you're just trying to figure things out. You're trying to heal. You're trying to just do a lot. And that's rough.
Surgery's not fun either.
Oh yeah, surgery is. Oh yeah. And then like, I mean, even our healthcare system, everybody knows like how you had your experience where you go to the PT that was in network and it was like she didn't know what she essentially was doing because she hasn't seen this in a while, because it's just not a normal thing.
You actually never seen one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
again,
they can only see so much. I mean,
Yeah.
the vast majority of patients probably she sees is people who are overweight or
it was mostly geriatric patients.
yeah, exactly. And it's like that's what she specializes in. So it's like it's unfortunate that in our in network thing for health, I mean, going down the healthcare rabbit, it's like it's just there isn't a lot of good resources that our insurances cover. So unfortunately, we have to like go elsewhere and try to find that. But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't. Would you say wanting to do that, and they just want the easy? They just like, hey,
Maybe.
doctor, hey, send me to where I need to go, and that's it. Versus like doing my own research and finding.
Maybe. I think a lot of it too is just that people don't know how to like navigate like the healthcare.
That is true.
We won't make this
too.
a healthcare podcast, but I
Yeah.
do think that it's just like kind of a maze.
Yeah,
And
is.
even for me, like the only reason that I did, even as far as like scheduling my surgery, initially they told me, you're going to wait a few months, which is like really bad
Yeah,
for the recovery.
it's a long time.
I ended up getting in within like a week and a half, 2 weeks, but it's because I had to call people who I know, like, friends or family friends, or Christine,
Yeah,
my fiance, who like they helped me navigate this because I didn't really know what I was doing. But yeah, it's
rough.
It's rough.
It's just a tough road. I mean, just dealing with all of it. Dealing with injury is just rough. I always get scared. Like that's another thing too. Why I want to lose weight too is because two things that I fear, knock on wood, that never happen is
the dark and being fat.
is tearing my ACL or MCL.
Have you before?
No.
Okay.
But I do get pains in my knees.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I got to stop doing this lift, or my Achilles.
Mm.
And that's what it's like goes to the whole thing where you said you're feeling great that day
Yeah.
and your pec was feeling it was fine. You didn't have any there was nothing that went in your head was like maybe I shouldn't lift this much. And
No, never a moment in that
yeah,
session did I think
it's
I
the
should
same thing
not
I
lift
feel
it.
about Achilles because I mean you see athletes all the time. They're playing and in my mind it's because they're playing like their fifth, fourth game in this week and
Yeah.
they're still training, they're still running and jumping constantly versus me maybe my chance is a little bit lower, but I still fear for my life from my Achilles.
Well, I think that a lot of that can be predicted. Maybe the most accurate prediction would be like where are you operating in relation to your ceiling?
Yeah.
So if your ceiling of performance is this,
Yeah.
and the highest you ever get in
So how
like
would you find your ceiling though? That's the thing.
let's okay, you don't need to.
Okay.
You can if you let's say you wanted to know what is the ceiling of like force output and like what your tissues can handle or structures can handle.
Hmm.
Say in your lower body, maybe you max out your squat,
Yeah.
right? And you realize, okay, my body, like my knees and my accompanying tendons and ligaments and my quads and my glutes and so on, all these things can handle me producing this amount of force. But again, that's one of those things where like that evaluation or that approximation may not even be useful because what are you going to do? Are you going to do math to figure out how much force you produce
Yeah.
when you're cutting on the basketball?
Yeah.
In a basketball game, probably not.
Yeah.
So I think it's more so, I guess, two things. One, ensuring that your level of training is sufficient, that like your ceiling is what you deem to be sufficiently high for whatever activities you want to pursue. So if your training pushes you to a point where your body can do this, and then let's say your main thing is basketball, and basketball only pushes you to be here,
Uh-huh.
that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a
but
good
if
way.
your ceiling of training is here, uh, if you're listening to this as a audio thing and you can't see me, my hand is really high. If your ceiling is here and your like where you operate or what you do in your life is also close to that same limit, you're kind of like increasing the odds for injury, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, a good way to think about that is like a car, right?
Uh-huh.
If your red line is 7,000 RPMs and you are idling at 6,000 for some reason, you're probably going to break something, right?
Yes.
But if your red line is 7,000, you idle at like 1,500, that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You're building this like machine to accommodate a higher end, but you're not always going to be at that high end.
Mhm.
You're going to be solid at the lower end.
Exactly.
Same thing with like running too. That makes sense because you can go run. You set your ceiling to be able to run an ultra marathon, but you're not going to run an ultra marathon every day.
Cam Hanes might, but no, not most people.
Is it important to have a good system in your fitness journey? And what I mean by that is when it comes to your working out, like when you show up, should you have like a good plan, like versus like, all right, I'm here, leg day. I don't have exactly what workouts I'm gonna do, but
Mm,
we're gonna figure it out.
yeah.
Same thing with your diet. There's a lot of times where I'm just like, I'm not counting my macros, but I have a general idea of what I should be eating, but is that good or bad? And then also to like self-management, I guess plays on a part of all that too, right?
So for you, you're kind of asking like you know that it's important. You're just like wondering how important is it to have a
Essentially,
plan?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost think if we zoom into for a moment the category of training, you could almost break it down into like there's working out and there's training. Working out is like on the basis of a specific like day. Like you go to the gym, you do whatever you do, that's your workout, right? A lot of the benefit of that said workout would be to feel better. You were somewhat active, so maybe you burned some calories,
Yep.
and whatever you did likely did drive some sort of adaptation.
Yeah.
But it's probably less specific than if you had uh, thought this out a little bit differently. So, say working out is that training may actually end up being the exact same thing that you just did, but training to me is in the context of a much bigger picture. Like you plan it out for a larger period of time. So it's not, I wouldn't necessarily consider it training or a training plan if you planned out a day.
Okay.
Maybe if you plan out like multiple training days and figure out how they fit together or don't, maybe.
Yep.
A week, maybe months. So training blocks, training cycles, and so on. Like longer periods of time where your goal there is whatever the adaptation you're seeking. It's like how do I program or how do I plan all of this training in a way that every one of these sessions is effective at pursuing that goal? Because figuring out what to do on a like one singular day is actually quite easy.
Yes.
For whatever the adaptation, if you know what the adaptation is that you're seeking, and you say like just for this day that I'm here at the gym for these 2 hours or whatever it is, that's very easy to figure out how to drive that change. It's much harder to do that where it's like every one of the next 20 workouts are all effective.
Yes.
Frequently people will I mean, on either end, you overshoot, you do more work than you need to, or it's harder work than you need to do. On the other end, maybe it's not hard enough, right? But doing it in the context of like, here's all of these things that I'm planning together, that is probably the best way to ensure the continuity of your progress, where it's not just here, I have an effective session today and then another one 3 weeks from now. But I have 7 sessions between.
Yeah.
It's again comes back to that idea of maximizing the result or the outcome of the same amount of effort. Like if you're going to be there anyway, you might as well devote enough thought to make sure that you are getting the most out of that effort at that time.
Yeah.
So in the context of like your training, it's almost it'll almost be silly not to, because you're going to be there. You're going to be working hard either way.
Yeah.
And to not have a plan going in, you can pretty much guarantee that you are getting less out of your training than you could have.
So I guess it goes down to what your goals are too then, right?
For sure.
Because if you just want to go work out and just burn some calories, you can just go show up and just
like non-specifically burn calories. Yeah. I'd still say in that case, though, even if that were your goal, like your main mission in the gym was just to burn calories.
Yeah.
There are ways to do that efficiently and other ways to do that less efficiently.
Yeah.
So I'd still say in the context, maybe as a general statement, in the context of training, having a plan makes sense.
Yeah.
Almost no matter who you are, no matter what your goal is.
Okay.
I would say that's maybe different in terms of your diet, because to have a plan for your diet, and let's say it exists on this continuum of how precise or how specific you want to get, like very, very specific, like all the way, say like far right, if rightmost is as specific as you can get. Say you're like a competitive bodybuilder getting ready for a show and you're tracking all of your macros, right?
Yeah.
If you're tracking them into the gram, you're weighing everything. That is very precise.
Yeah.
That is about as precise as I'd ever want somebody to be for any goal set. And on the other end of the continuum is like no precision, and no real concerted effort. It's just like you eat however you eat, eat whatever you want kind of thing. That's the opposite end. So along that spectrum, there are like many points between those two extremes. And the farther along you live toward precision, generally speaking, it's like pretty intrusive for many people. Especially people uninitiated who have never done something with their diet. It's pretty intrusive. It's a pretty big like lifestyle change. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of willpower. Certainly there is a benefit to doing that, but it's hard to say if that benefit is so much greater than, 2 steps before. So say like somebody who's never dieted and they're like, so they're clinically obese and they know they need to lose a bunch of fat. They need to lose some weight. For that person, probably makes very little sense to have them jump right to the far end of the spectrum where it's like, I'm going to track everything that I eat and weigh it to the gram. The amount of like effort it would take for them to learn how to do that and also do that consistently is probably not worth the difference in outcome between that and like 3 steps prior, which might be just like, maybe they food journal, right? Maybe they food journal and they, with their care team, whether that's their dietitian, a nutritionist, whoever, they go through that food journal and say, okay, maybe eat less of these things.
Okay.
Because for that person, the input that they need is like significantly less precise than the guy who's getting ready for a bodybuilding show to produce what is likely going to be a very similar outcome. So in that context, like the context of your diet, it really is context dependent, where what you're trying to accomplish and where you currently are at should govern how much effort you put into that piece right now. You may, as you progress, need to change that and be at a different place on that spectrum. But at least at the outset, I don't encourage most people to devote more effort than absolutely necessary to produce whatever result they want in their diet.
So you would say essentially any type of system will be a good system. It just needs to be hitting what they're looking for, and it needs to be manageable is the key part too. I feel like
it needs to be something that they can do sustainably. Yeah. And like,
and practical to their lifestyle and everything too, right? Because what would you say? What are key ingredients to having a good system, and like what's the care? Like what are those for just anybody in general? They're looking at their fitness journey and they're
like in a very general sense.
Just a very general sense, yeah. Someone just wants to get healthier, and what's the good general system would you say to do when it comes to just like the lifting, the diet, the whole management part of it? Like, what was some characteristics like you would say?
I think some part of that has to be forethought. Like you have to think based on like where you're headed or where you're hoping to get to. What specifically should you be trying at? Because it's not everything all the time.
Yes.
It's like, what are the most important things for you to put effort into? And then you construct a plan around those things, like prioritizing those things. It also needs to be something that you know you can consistently do. So, like a very common question myself and other coaches I'm sure get is like, what is the perfect program for X? And that's not a question that you can really answer because it really depends. Like you could write, if there was a most effective program, you could write that program and it probably still doesn't work for most people because they're not willing to do that. So it has to be a thing where they are willing, you are both capable of and willing to do X, Y, and Z consistently. If you're not capable of and willing to do Z, you probably shouldn't include it in your program, right? Mm-hmm. So there has to be an aspect of forethought and planning in context with your goals, as well as your commitment to those goals, like what work you're willing to do. I think there has to be a component of, say, accountability or trackability. So like you need to be able to keep track of what you're doing and what you're not. There also needs to be a component of evaluation. So the evaluation piece is probably most important, probably most overlooked. If you cannot, within your system, look at what you have done and what effect it has created for you, then it's probably not going to be a very good system because you won't know if that works at all. Maybe you'll know if it works at all, but you won't know if it works relatively better or worse than anything else that you might change in the future. And you have no real way to go back and compare to future changes to then refine. Because really the goal is not to create a perfect system in the first place.
Yeah.
It's to create something as a reference for you to then revise and reiterate over time.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense.
It's kind of like when you're making content, when you're making a podcast, like really what you have when you first record, you have a bunch of footage and audio and it's like, sorry, I know this is gonna be terrible for your audio. There's a bug flying.
There's a bug flying around.
But when you're making content, right? Say you're doing your podcast or whatever it is, you have all this raw footage and audio, whatever it is, and you can then, once you have it, you can clip it, you can edit it down, you can kind of distill it down into the end product. For you in your fitness, say to do that, you have to have something to start from.
Yeah.
And if you just do all these things, like say you work out and you eat however you think you should, with no way to evaluate, it's almost like you don't have the ability to edit then in the future, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of just stuck with whatever you have.
Mm-hmm. You don't have enough data or a pool of stuff to like work from.
Yeah.
You're just going straight into the deep end. It's like, you might not even be right either because this may not be working for you. It may not be self-sustainable, and you have to be honest with yourself. Like, I got to start a little slower.
Yeah.
Start where it's going to make easy. Cause I feel like the mental has to be down there first before you do anything else. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have the mental down to want to make these changes, it's going to be very hard when you start going very extreme on those changes.
I think so. When I describe to people what I do, a simple way to put it is I teach people about nutrition, training, and self-management. Of those things, the ones that are most interesting at the outset are going to be your nutrition and training, because that's what you hire me for mainly. Mm-hmm. But frequently what we learn is the self-management piece is the one that needs the most work. And I'll circle back to that, but it's basically to say, one, like when we have those conversations about like, what are your goals and what can you commit to doing consistently to pursue them? Most people are correct about what their goals are, but they're wrong about what they're willing to do. They will say, I'm willing to, I don't know, train 4 times a week. And their average training frequency in reality after like a few months might only be, 3.1 sessions a week because life happens, right? You think your norm is 4, but real life says your norm is 3.1, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think being able to account for that, again, within your system and accurately evaluate is one piece. But the other piece is really understanding that a lot of what most people need is actually to find ways to ensure that they have the time and energy to actually invest into this to make it effective. Because you might know enough, you might have a perfect system in place, but if you can't put anything into it, nothing comes from it, right?
Exactly.
And self-management, when I say that, I don't intend to, I will not pretend that I know how you or anybody else should manage themselves entirely. It's more so finding a way, again, to ensure that you have, without making undue compromise everywhere else in your life, that you have time and energy to devote to your fitness. And it looks different for everybody. So it's more, from the coaching context, it's more that I have seen many people fail at that in so many different ways. I can at least tell you a bunch of ways that don't work.
Mhm.
I can tell you a few that have consistently been a good starting point for many people and then steer you from there. But everybody's going to have to figure out what their own system is. But same idea with your training program. It's like you set up what you think is the best option for now with the intent to reiterate and to refine over time,
Yeah.
knowing that it's imperfect.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing there.
Yeah. That makes it, because it's like you have to be honest with yourself too. You have to really be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you have plenty of experience of like seeing different types of people who what works for them. But I think overall of it, it's like you have to know what works for them by them being honest with you and telling you like,
Sure.
hey, like I work a lot. This isn't gonna work, and then you adjust off of that.
Yeah.
But you really have to lay out everything. Of like, wait, like would you say like laying out your day to day life and seeing what and plug in and figure out what works based off of that would be the number one key of like finding a good system of what works for you.
What's the question?
Of like having a like planning your day out or
Okay.
having a good overview of what your day or week how it works
Mhm.
from when you wake up when you go to sleep is a good way to first have a general sense of, all right, this is what my system's going to be.
But basically, like, do you need to like plan yourself or your day to then maximize your
No, I
time?
think more of really having a overview of like how your day actually is.
Yeah.
Because we've had conversations where you ask
We
me
have. I
like,
know that. Yeah.
where like, how long do you think it takes you to work out? How long do
Right.
it takes you to do this? And like one answer could be different than like 2 hours from 3 hours is totally different from those
Right.
two. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that's an important component of self management is being able to be accurate and honest, like you said. Like so,
Yeah.
the example you're talking about is there was a time I asked you how long does it take you to train?
Yeah.
And I think you said something like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But then you also told me that you needed to allow like between like I don't know the hours of like 2 and I don't know 5:30 for that training session.
Yeah,
Right.
it was you asked it was more of so you asked me the first when we first started the conversation was how long do I train?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said yeah, 2 hours. And then we kept going on the conversation and then I said 2 hours. And you're like, oh, that's a big difference. But to me, from my perspective, that doesn't seem
You
like a
said two
lot.
hours twice just now. You meant one
I
hour
mean,
and 2 hours. 1 hour became 2 in that conversation. Or 2 hours became 3 or something like that, right?
or first thing I probably said the first thing was no, the first thing I said was 2 hours and
Okay.
then ended up being 3 hours. Sorry.
Okay, there you go.
There we
Yeah.
go. And to me, when I think about that, when you just think about things in general, like off the top of your head, you're like, oh yeah, it takes about 2-3 hours, but that hour difference is a big
Right.
difference, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, and like you lose a lot of time to those
Yeah.
things that you kind of either inaccurately represent in your head
Yeah,
or that you've never really evaluated in the first place.
yeah,
So yeah, that's a great point. I do think though, going back to the same idea, let's say nutrition,
Mhm.
how much effort and attention somebody's like management of themselves or their time it actually should be required or is useful. It really does depend on like how much more do you need, right? Like so if somebody starts, let's say they have their training and their nutrition plan set up and they start
Yeah.
and they're progressing well
Yeah.
and they're not making undue compromise in the rest of their lives, they may not need more attention and effort in their self-management.
Mhm.
So like I find a lot of people who have like very normal, what is normal? Who have very consistent schedules just given their lifestyle or their jobs. Like I have a doctor who's a primary care physician. He works like it's not literally 9 to 5, but it's basically structured like that. He knows what hours of which days he's going to be in office and clinic, right? So for him, very consistent schedule. He knows he can always train before he goes home after work. So for him, it's like his lifestyle and his profession kind of has dictated the way he manages his time
Yeah.
and himself. So unless that were to change, he doesn't really need more there.
Mhm.
He just needs to figure out like, how do I train? How do I eat? Whereas for you, and I imagine many people listening or watching, the difficulty is that you almost have like too much freedom. Like you
Yeah.
being responsible for yourself and your own business.
Yeah.
There's so much freedom of choice as to how you manage yourself.
Yeah.
It's almost disabling sometimes having that much freedom.
100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for you, I do think it's probably like in order of importance, it becomes like, how do I manage myself?
Yep.
So that I can train and eat.
Yeah,
Effectively.
exactly. Yeah, for me personally, I think managing time is a number one thing that I've been learning, especially because I have all this freedom.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if every single answer of what I do during my day, like how long does it take you to eat? How long does it take you to go work out? How long does it take you to do this? And I keep saying like a variable, oh, it takes 2-3 hours here, oh, it takes 4 to 5 hours here, but there's 2 hours, 3 hours of like what if
Mhm.
that I'm guessing that I'm wasting, and that's a lot of time.
Sure.
And not having an exact like time where it's like, all right, from here to here I'm doing this, from here to here I'm doing this. Obviously there's leeway,
Yep.
right? But knowing how much something actually takes, I feel like is required for a good system, because if you don't, then it's like, all right, I'm gonna go work out, and I think it's gonna take 2 hours, and it ends up taking 4 hours. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's okay because I don't have a system in place. And I go home and then I plan on doing this, but I just took too much time at the gym, so now I can't do that. So now it rolls over.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. So that to me is what reliability boils down to, is people kind of just are not accurate or honest in their time allowances, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know how long the gym takes and you're running now an hour late and it's your turn to cook for you and Vanessa.
Yep.
If you're that hour late and you're like, oh shit, I can't cook now.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You were unreliable, not because like there's any ill intent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because you're inaccurate.
Yep.
Right. So having had a system in place where you could have known better, like how long does this really take? And not just based on like a session, but like, maybe a week, 2 weeks of training, whatever. You can then either plan accordingly, or you can adjust your training so that it's not 2 hours or it's not 3 hours. Maybe it becomes 2.
Yeah.
And I think that, that works for kind of everything, but in the context of like your fitness, your nutrition, your training, it's almost like whether you can be effective there is basically, can you be reliable to yourself, at the very least to yourself? And not to conflate the work that people do or that I do in this space, but I do think that fitness is a very low stakes arena in which you can practice principles that you need for the rest of your life. Like you need to be reliable everywhere else.
Yep.
And if you can't at least be reliable to yourself in this one narrow lane of your life, how are you going to do that anywhere else?
Exactly.
Right. But the nice thing about fitness too is like if you mess up, maybe your training took you 30 minutes longer than it was supposed to. Fine. Right. Or maybe you didn't lose that extra 2 pounds of fat that you hoped to this month. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Right. So it's low stakes in the sense that you have the rest of your life to get better at fitness. But it is really nice to have an arena by which you can practice these things so that you can hopefully already develop them or already have them developed for the things that really do matter in your life.
I agree. Yeah. So just to wrap it all up, having a good system is very important.
Yeah, I think, and the components of that system in a very general sense would be some amount of forethought goes into creating a plan, acknowledging that it's imperfect, right? There has to be then a way for you to track or hold yourself accountable to actually following through with said plan. Again, even if it is not perfect. And then the last piece, probably most importantly, is the evaluation of that plan. Like what is working, what's not. And from there, with everything you've recorded, what do you then change to make it better? Right?
Yeah.
So I think all those pieces have to be in place, and they can exist for probably most importantly, or most consistently, I would recommend that you do it for your training, probably for your diet, but to what extent may vary. And then
Bug is back.
For self-management, I think that's probably important, but it depends on, got him. But it depends on who you are.
Cool. Sweet. Well, we got the bug.
We got the bug. That was the most important part of this podcast.
That was the most important part of the podcast. So at the beginning, the bug was the journey. And now we completed our journey.
The bug is dead.